Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new shell that we've never tested before, and when I saw it on the shelf I had to pick some up to see what they could do, since we had seen some pretty impressive results from this specific brand with a pretty similar shell before, but we've never tried these, and I have a feeling that they should give us some pretty nice performance. But as for that shell I've brought out here today, I picked up some of these. These are some Hornady Varmint Express shells. They are a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 24 pellet load of number 4 buck, moving about 1350 feet per second, and they do have the Hornady Versatite wad, which is essentially almost identical to Federal Flight Control wad. And we tested some of the heavy Magnum Coyote shells from Hornady, which were a 3-inch BB load with the Versatite wad, and they gave us some fantastic results. So with how this shell is loaded, having that Versatite wad, and with them being a 24 pellet load of 4 buck, I have a feeling that we should see some pretty nice results out of it. And as for the setup I've got to run them through today, I brought out the Remington 1187 here with the factory stock full choke. This particular choke does measure out to 688 constriction. This stock full choke and this 1187 have been a very reliable starting point for pretty much every buckshot load, including the little bit smaller pellets like these 4 bucks. So we should see some nice results out of it. It might not be the best choke combo for these shells, but it will give us an idea of if they're even remotely decent or not. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. For a buckshot test, I've got the big sheet of paper set up at 40 yards, got the chronograph so we can get our velocity out of the shell, and I've got the templates that we can lay up over the target when we go check out what kind of performance we actually got. So enough talking, let's sit over here and take this shot and see just what kind of a result we're able to get from the Hornady Varmint Express 4 buck shells through this 1187. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty nice, but we don't know until we try it. So let's head over here and take the shot and see what we get. Okay, so let's take a peek at our chronograph here real quick. And as you can see, it says 1428. The boss claim is 1350. Now we do have a 28-inch barrel, so this reading is not out of the realm of possibility, but there's always, I guess, the slim chance that it could have been a little bit of an error. Generally speaking, this chronograph has been very reliable with shells like this, so I tend to believe that number is actually correct. Now, what is interesting is that shell was very light in the recoil department. It was probably the lightest recoiling buckshot oriented shell that I've ever tested, which was pretty surprising considering what kind of velocity and what kind of payload we actually have. Either way, 1428 is what it says we got, and I believe that's probably about correct, but what kind of a pattern did they actually give us down there at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. All right, now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, I don't think we're off to a terrible starting point, but I definitely think we can do a lot better than this at the same time. We've seen way worse out of other 4 buck shells in the past, so these are definitely off on the right foot. And still, that's a pattern that you could absolutely take out on a coyote hunt or anything like that and be just fine. Now, I will say this right now before I'm sure somebody's already commented at this point, but either way, with the Versatite wad being essentially the same thing as a flight control wad going through a full choke, I'm sure a lot of people don't agree with that, but hey, this is a test and we got to start somewhere, and we knew from previous tests with a shell with a Versatite wad that they really did well through a full choke. So we are going to continue to test them and see what we get, but for today this is a starting point and this is where we're at. Either way, I think we might have been just a touch off to the right, but with the white dot being my point of aim there, we did have a pretty condensed little splotch of pellets right there. Now around the edges we did have a couple of flyers. There's 1 or 2 way down there at the very bottom and to the left, so it's definitely not a perfectly uniform or even pattern. We can definitely work on that, that's for sure, but not terrible overall for a starting point. The paper is 36 inches wide, so that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what size pattern we had. It's probably right at about 36 inches, maybe an inch or 2 more if you include the flyer all the way at the very bottom edge of the paper. So definitely not a perfect pattern. I think we can do better with it with the right choke, but let's throw a couple templates up and see how this combination actually performed in some real life scenarios. Alright, so we'll start off here with our 10-inch circle, and before I forget, I don't think I mentioned it a second ago, but we do have all 24 pellets on this actual paper. But inside a 10-inch circle at 40 yards, we had 10 out of the 24 pellets. So definitely not terrible. 10 pellets in a 10-inch vital size circle is gonna do the job on whatever you would need it to. I did scoot the template over to the right just a touch because I do think we were off to the right a little bit, but still, I don't think it really would have changed much if we would have moved it around an inch or two. So for our core, not bad. I think we can do a little bit better with the right choke, but that is still very usable. So let's throw a couple animal templates up and see how it would have done in some actual hunting type of scenarios. All right, we'll start here for just a quick second with the deer template for those of you that would hunt deer with a 4-buck load. I know it can be kind of on the fence. Some people would absolutely use it. Some people prefer a little bit larger shot size. 4-buck can absolutely take a deer, but to each their own. Either way, we had 17 pellets that would have definitely hit this deer if you would have lined your shot up with that point of aim there. So clearly, you would absolutely have a dead deer at 40 yards all day long. Now, the pattern isn't quite as condensed as what I would kind of like to see if I was to actually hunt deer with this shell. It's got a little bit more spread than what I would like. You have a handful of pellets going through your shoulder and up into your neck and stuff like that. So that is something to take note of, but you still absolutely would have got that deer, no question about it. But let's throw the hog template up, which I think is a little bit better size reference and animal reference as to what a lot of people would probably use these shells for. All right, here's the hog template, and it's pretty well the same story. You had right at 17 or 18 pellets that would have definitely hit him. Plenty of them right through the vital area, so you would have absolutely gotten the job done. But you can see there is a little bit of a spread to it. Not all the pellets are right in the main vital area, so you will have at least a little bit of meat damage to deal with in the front shoulders and stuff like that. But I think this hog is a much better representation for what a lot of people would use these shells for. A coyote is going to be a touch smaller than this template, and you still have plenty of them on the paper there, so you could absolutely hunt fox or coyote, or even like groundhogs or something at 40 yards would not make it through that pattern. So definitely not a terrible starting point for today's results. It's a lot better immediately right off the bat than a lot of the other 4-buck shells that we've tested, which is definitely a good thing, but I do think we can do a little bit better, like I've said multiple times already. With the right choke, I really think we can tune these in a little bit. We just got to find what combination these shells really like to work well with. But overall, that's still a very usable pattern. It's not perfect, but it would absolutely do the job for you. All right, and here's that Versatite wad, and as you can see, it is very similar to some of the Federal Flight Control wads that they use in their buckshot shells. You got these flaps on the side and the little tail skirt fins down here, with it being a hard, rigid style wad. Now this one is a little bit interesting. There's nothing stuck down in there. There's no major damage, but we did have one pedal over here that didn't open up like the other two. So that very well could have caused our slight difference where it was shifted off to the right a little bit, or maybe one or two of those flyers could have gotten kicked out with it not being completely straight or stabilized as it left the bore or anything like that. The big thing is going through that full choke, it's not damaged in any way. Typically, if you're over constricting one of these flight control style wads, you'll get a big bulge here between the fins where everything kind of gets jammed into the choke, and we are not seeing that here at all. So I definitely don't think we're over constricted. We just need to tune in what really works as far as choke with these shells. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that pattern right there? Definitely not off to a terrible start. That's way better than a good majority of the other 4-buck shells we've tested here recently. So I definitely think we've got some room for improvement. It's not perfect, but if we find the perfect choke combo for these shells, I really think they're going to be some nice performers. That's already a very usable pattern, but I think we can squeeze a little more out of them still. I don't know, maybe we try them through something like the buck kicker full choke. That might be about perfect, but it might also play a little funny with that Versatite wad. I think it's something we should definitely try and see what happens. But I guess leave all your thoughts down in the comments. Is that about what you expected? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Hornady Varmint Express 4-buck shells? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Would you hunt with that kind of a pattern? Or would you want to see it tuned in a little bit better overall? And is there another choke or combo you might want to see these shells through? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it. But I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.